What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to Dudes Who Bet Sports. I am stoked to be here with Aaron Halterman and Papa Dude. It has been way too long, guys. Papa Dude, I've missed you, man. I got to see Aaron last weekend, but I've missed you. How you doing?
You don't have much of a life then, do you, Mike?
Not much. I just sit here and bet sports and bet horses, and that's about it. So the Papa Dude time, I need it.
Well, you've got me for the next 5 days, I guess, and then 5 more out of the next week, because the way I am, I'm very, very disciplined.
I love it. I got to say, I'm glad you didn't come to the Breeders' Cup.
Really?
Yeah, I left my tickets in Raleigh, so you would have been very upset.
That would have been really bad. Yeah. Well, you wouldn't have left it if you knew I was coming.
Definitely.
That would have been high priority.
They definitely wouldn't be sitting right here still.
Well, maybe you would have then. I don't know. I would have thought you would have put that in your bag first.
Yeah, well, that would have been the smart thing to do, but I was too excited to go play some poker. All right, let's jump into the betting action first. Let's start with last weekend. I thought this was an interesting one to kick off here. Georgia plays Tennessee, and I know right when the line came out, because we talked about this game a little bit earlier in the week, there wasn't a line yet. Line comes out at +8.5. I immediately I love Tennessee plus the points. Aaron, you felt the same way. Papa Dude, were you leaning Tennessee early as well?
I was, definitely, yes. I thought it was too many points.
And this is an interesting one where paying attention to where the money comes in and what a sports book does can often help you get onto the right side. So I ended up betting Georgia on Saturday, and the main reason was, and we talked about this, Aaron, the line got down to 8. Mm-hmm. And there was still 90% of the bets coming in on Tennessee. And multiple sportsbook directors went into podcasts and said, we're not going to 7. We're willing to take a loss on Georgia if they cannot cover the spread. That got me to bet Tennessee or bet Georgia instead of betting Tennessee. Talk a little bit about when the money's on one side and when the sportsbook's willing to take a stand, why it's important to kind of go with the sportsbook, even if your opinion was originally the other way.
Yeah, we were kind of going crazy about this on the lead up to the game. Of course, we were staying in the same place and we were talking about it all the time. And anytime you see, Tennessee just getting pounded, they were taking 95% of the money. Usually Vegas goes, okay, let's lower this line so we can even this thing out. They said, no, we're not lowering this line. In fact, it went up. They were begging you to pick Tennessee. And when that happens, you want to go the other way 9 times out of 10. Vegas had to have made a fortune on this game. And like you said, you listened to that show. I can't remember which show it was. And you heard a sportsbook say, look, this is the game of the year for us. We're digging our heels in. We believe Georgia's going to cover the spread. Bet Tennessee if you want. This is the game we're really digging in on. And if you bet, Georgia -7.5, 8, 8.5, 12, it doesn't matter. You never really were in doubt that you were going to cash that. So, yeah, it was just a sign that they were very, very confident in their lines.
Yep. And we talked about live betting before, Papa Dude. That game, after that Tennessee field goal to start the game, it was Georgia -7. You could even get a -6.5 in a couple places. And that was an immediate bet for me. And so it's another reason why watching those live lines, too, because if the team you don't like, the other team scores first, all of a sudden, you're getting a much better number.
Yeah. Yep. Well, I think, again, we've all got duped a little bit with Alabama. Tennessee beating Alabama. Alabama's not as good as they usually are. It's obvious. They should have lost 3 games. They were in trouble at Arkansas and got lucky to win that game. So I think we all got duped, including me. We got duped, and then Tennessee turned right around and killed Kentucky, dominated them. So we overrated them a little bit. We kind of underrated Georgia because of some close calls, which guess what? Teams have in the season, especially when you're number 1 and everybody's getting out after you. So, yeah, that was a very good, sound bet to go ahead and take them at home with that line the way it was. So
it's interesting the parallels between sports betting and race betting here. You're talking a lot about recency bias, Papa Dude, right? Where we've had you remember the most recent games from Tennessee, the win over Alabama, that them blowing out Kentucky. You remember Georgia struggling against Missouri, but when you look at the body of work, it's still a very different discussion. A lot of times that happens in horse racing as well, where you'll have 1 or 2 bad races. But if you're willing to cross those out and look back, okay, what is the top tier? What is the A+ effort going to look like here? Sometimes you get 10, 15, 20 to 1 shots that should have been going off at 3-1, right, Aaron? I know we talk about that quite a bit.
Yeah, sure.
Yep, absolutely. And you guys are both right. And I think the Alabama point really gets driven home. They should have, you mentioned the Arkansas game, Papa Dude. What about the Texas game? They could have lost that one.
I counted as a loss. That's when I said they should have lost 3 games.
Well, what about the Texas A&M game? That game easily they could have lost.
That one. Yeah.
Yeah. So as it turns out, they had that name of Alabama, and Tennessee was able to beat them. At the end of the day, they're not as good as they were, and that it inflated the public's perception of Tennessee. And like I said, it did for me too. But thankfully, when you're kind of in it and you kind of follow it more than just a casual, you hear stuff like what Somich was talking about, and you're like, hey, listen, you just bet Georgia in this situation, and you just roll with it.
Yeah.
And
let people who are making a lot more money doing this, aka the casinos and sports, help form your opinion, because that'll tell you which direction to go. A lot of times, and this really shakes up the playoff as well. You've got Georgia number 1, Ohio State number 2, Michigan number 3. All that's expected, and Michigan, Ohio State will play later in the year here. But now you got TCU 4, Oregon 6, USC 8. Clemson loses as well. They fall away to 10. All of a sudden, it feels like we could have a Pac-10 team and a Big 12 team in here if this thing falls right, because it's going to be real tough to get 2 SEC teams in after this weekend and what we saw. Papa Dude, what conference was this weekend the best for? Who gained the most?
It allowed the Pac-12 back in to the discussion. The whole key to this is TCU. That's the whole key. If they get beat, they're done. Forget it. They are going to have to go undefeated. It's not fair, but that's the way it is. Mm-hmm. If they get beat, it opens up a big can of worms, because one of those undefeated teams right now is going to lose because they play each other. Yep. The other key is, let's say, and Aaron and I use this, even though I'm not sure Ohio State's going to beat Michigan. I'm not. I think Michigan might be better. But let's just say they do. And let's say they beat them 42-20. Say it's not close. Well, will that eliminate Michigan? Because what do? We remember, as you said, we remember the last thing we saw. Yep. And what's the last thing we saw? Michigan getting killed by Ohio State. So that opens it up. Let's say Oregon runs the table. They're going to have to beat Washington this week, Utah next week, and maybe UCLA or USC in the Pac-12. That's 3 damn good wins. Yeah. I think if either Ohio State or Michigan gets blown out, Oregon may jump up.
I think Oregon was the team that benefited the most from this weekend, Aaron. You mentioned their remaining schedule, but their only loss was to Georgia the first week of the season. This is a very different team. You can create a narrative around this Oregon team saying they've gotten better and better and better. And they got Bo Nix sitting there at quarterback. So, Aaron, would you say Oregon benefited the most? And what would your top 4 be, or your final 4 be? Let's say fast forward to the end of the season. Does a Pac-12 or Big 12 team make it?
Oregon did benefit a lot. You guys are going to be kind of laugh at this. Tennessee, I think, benefited the most from last week because they played decent enough and Alabama lost. So now, to me, what's going to happen is I think Georgia's going to be number 1. I'll just take Ohio State number 2. I think Tennessee will end up being number 3 because I think they're going to win their next 3 games. And I think they're going to look at it and say, well, they lost to Georgia. And then I think it's going to be between Michigan and Oregon, or Michigan and USC, or Michigan and UCLA, whoever comes out of the Pac-12 for that 4th spot. I do think TCU will end up losing. And like I said, I think they're kind of out. I think it's just going to depend that 4th spot on, did Michigan lose a 1-point game? Did they lose a 10-point game? Did they lose a 20-point game? How's that going to matter? And then just how impressive were those Pac-12 teams?
Right.
It's going to be one of the 2. I kind of lean towards, I think, a team like Oregon would get in if they run the table. USC, UCLA, I'm not sure. I think they would take Michigan.
So we're thinking we could have Georgia, Big 10 team fill in here, and 2 one-loss teams with losses to Georgia.
Yeah.
That's
probably what's could most likely scenario happen. Yeah.
So and the best team in the country. Can we all just agree on that?
That's an argument. The other key for, as Aaron said, with Tennessee, they got 3 very winnable games left. Now they need to dominate all 3 of those games. They got Missouri, Kentucky, and Vanderbilt. Those are all 3 winnable games. They need to win big. They don't need to eke them out. The other key for them is they avoid the SEC championship game. They don't have to screw with that. So they're sitting there 11-1, the only loss to number 1, Georgia.
Yep. They're in a great position all of a sudden.
One other team, though, we got to mention, and we don't think they're going to get there. They can throw a monkey wrench in the whole thing, and that's Mississippi.
Yeah.
They've only lost 1 game. So if they beat Alabama this week, big if. But listen, Alabama's not that good.
Yeah, they can beat them.
And Alabama hadn't been in this situation. They're out of it.
Yeah.
Maybe. Don't ever.
They would need a lot to go right for them to be able to end up finding any way in with 2 losses. You need
the other key, though, is with them, where they put them. What are they, 9th?
Yep.
Yeah.
They're above some 1-loss teams, which already tells you they think, well, hell, there's Alabama. They still got a chance.
Yeah, I mean, they could win out, end up beating Georgia, and make a pretty good case for this if somehow Ohio State stubs their toes, and then the other one wins, and TCU loses, and UCLA plays USC, and then you have one of them lose into that game, but then they win that game, and all of a sudden Oregon loses. There is a wild scenario, but it would take some real chaos.
Yeah,
kind of NFL-style chaos, if you will.
It is.
A crazy NFL weekend. The Bills go down as double-digit underdogs. Kansas City just pulls it out here. We've got Isaac mentioning in the chat, what a Chiefs game. Mahomes throws the ball like 68 times, something crazy like that. But really, the plays he made with his feet were what were the most impressive.
Yeah.
Aaron, is there any good team in the NFL except for the Philadelphia Eagles?
No. I don't think there is. Listen, if this Chiefs team didn't have Mahomes, I think they'd be one of the worst in the NFL. I really, truly believe that. He's that good. He put the team on his back and won that game. The Bills, now you got the Josh Allen. He might have an injured elbow, and what's going on with him? I tell you, without Josh Allen, they're not very good either. So and when he played poorly, they weren't very good. So no, there's not a good team out there. I think the Eagles, maybe the Dolphins. Yes, they're out there.
You guys try to win the division if Allen goes down.
Well, I'll tell you what, for the people who just trash Tua all the time for no reason, when he plays, they win. And so he's back. They look pretty good. And you're right. They're a half game out of first.
Yeah.
So if there's no Josh Allen, the Dolphins are the favorites to win the division.
And then you look at the NFC. My God, that is a cluster. That is a mess. An absolute mess.
I kind of agree with Curtis's comment right here. Oh, did you put it up at the same time? I would take 12-1 on the 49ers right now.
Yeah, I 100% agree with that one. I think the 49ers are in a position here to absolutely roll. I love them this week. I already bet them at -6.5. It's up to -7 now against the Chargers. So pretty much the worst matchup possible for a team that can't stop the run. And you have Kyle Shanahan with a week to prepare against that with Christian McCaffrey running at you, and a team that can't block a front four with one of the best front four pass rushing teams. It is an awful matchup for the Chargers here, who have to also, by the way, fly back across the country before flying up your second road game in a row. San Francisco could put the hurt on some people here. They are a very good team out there in the NFC.
Yep. They just got to get consistent quarterback play with no turnovers from that position, and I think they're going to be tough.
I wonder what Dallas is right now.
To win the Super Bowl?
Yeah.
Let's see if I'm pulling up NFL futures. So right now, Dallas is sitting on the board at 14-1. And the Niners, I'm seeing it 10-1 here. This is on Bovada. Bill, it's still your 3.25 plus the 325 favorite. To win the NFC, you can get the Niners at plus 450. The Dolphins to win the AFC East are plus 500. I thought that was kind of interesting as well.
Yes.
In the NFC West, the Niners are only minus 135 to win the division because Seattle is sitting there at plus 130.
Yeah.
Have they played each other yet?
I believe San Francisco beat Seattle once.
Okay.
I'll double check that right now.
Okay.
But they do have Seattle is sitting on the board at 6-3. San Francisco, they have not. Oh, they did play each other. San Francisco blew Seattle out in week 2.
Yeah.
Okay. San Francisco currently at 4-4, so 2 games back. Has some work to do, but they're getting healthy now, which should help them as well.
Yeah, I like the Cowboys a lot. I do.
their defense is ferocious. I still don't fully trust Dak, but I don't understand. I don't understand why Pollard isn't playing every game, but their defense is tough.
They really are. And again, I've mentioned it several times. They're usually flash. They're not now. They're smash. And that's what wins in the playoffs. And they got enough offense. If Dak can play well, they're dangerous. They're pretty good. They look really good.
All right, let's jump into some action today before we get into the best bets real quickly here. We'll start off in the NBA world. The game of the night, ironically, I don't know anyone who saw this coming, is the 9-3 Jazz going into the 7-3 Atlanta Hawks. Both of these teams, I mean, the Hawks made some moves in the offseason. You thought they might be good. The Jazz, it felt like they were trying to tank.
Exactly.
And here they are at 9-3. Atlanta laying 3 at home here. Total currently 228.5. Papa Dude, what are your thoughts here on the Jazz versus the Hawks?
I keep waiting for the Jazz to crumble. You know, they got off to a great start, then they lost a couple, and you're thinking, okay, the bubble burst, and they can't keep doing this. And they just have ran off 3 or 4 in a row. Now they're 9-3. You have to take them serious. This is a franchise that is so good in the regular season. Can't do anything in the playoffs. It's been that way for years. Some teams are like that, but this team traded their studs, and they made the teams they traded them to better. You know, you don't see this very often, but they have something going on. I love the Hawks. One of my favorite players plays on the Hawks, Trae Young, so I love them. They're playing well, really well. So I like the Hawks tonight. I think the Jazz are going to have a hard time winning. So
I like the Hawks as well. Jazz traveling cross country. I'll lay the 3 there. I put a small bet in on the game, nothing crazy. Aaron, it's going to be a wild night in the NBA. We have a plethora of road favorites, so it could be complete chaos there. Any game that kind of stuck out to you? I know you didn't go with NBA as your best bet.
Yeah, it's crazy. We had no games yesterday and 13 games tonight, so it kind of makes it for a crazy NBA week. Listen, you're right. We got a lot of road favorites. Can the home dogs come through? You know, a team that I think is playing pretty good, and I think we think they're decent, or at least, you know, better than average. That's the Indiana Pacers, and they are getting 5.5 tonight against the Denver Nuggets. I thought the Pacers were a pretty good play, plus 5.5. Almost did it, but you know, I kind of remembered that Papa Dude, I think you played the Pacers earlier in the year, did not look good. So didn't want to keep that jinx going, but I almost put the Pacers as the bet today, plus 5.5. I like that underdog playing the NBA. And you're right, there's a lot of different ways you can go if you want to play home dogs tonight.
Yep.
So head over to the ice here. We've got one marquee game, the Hurricanes heading into Aaron's Florida Panthers, who are only 7-5 on the young season. They're struggling a little bit out there with an overtime loss, so just 7-6. The Hurricanes keep chugging along. Aaron, this is probably the best matchup we're going to see tonight, maybe even in a while. 2 of the top teams in the NHL. What do you think here, Hurricanes and Panthers?
Yeah, I'm looking forward to this one. It's going to be a really good game. I took the Panthers, but it's definitely a toss-up. Kind of a conflicting styles is what this is. You know, the Panthers want to open it up. Carolina plays a little bit more of a tight checking type of game. It's going to be good. You're right. The Panthers have struggled a bit as of late, especially the last 5 games. Haven't looked as explosive. I think getting back home helps tonight. I think the Panthers win, but I think this will be a really good game. I'm expecting, 3-2, 4-3, something like that.
Papa Dude, the Penguins, who've lost 7 straight, are a favorite in Washington tonight. What do you think? What'd you make of that one?
Well, neither one of them's very good, I don't think. You know, I think I took the Capitals, but I don't have any confidence in that one. Stay away from that Florida game too. Just watch it and enjoy it. That can go either way. I guess we don't have time to talk about the Blues, but it is a pathetic situation. I see that Sylvain brought that up. Thanks a lot, Sylvain.
We're bad. Like, it's not good.
Hey, we got a bad situation because what are we going to do if it continues to tank? We got 2 guys who are getting too much money in Robert Thomas and Kyrou.
Jordan Kyrou, yeah. I mean, it's going to be interesting at the deadline to see what happens with Tarasenko, with Saad, and with O'Reilly, because all 3 would get returns that are pretty big. And it would be interesting if we decide to move on, especially with 2 of those 3 being free agents next year. So it's going to be an interesting trade deadline for the Blues, but not much else. However, if you want something interesting, get some action in your life. Last night's games were great. This is a stretch of 21 straight days with a night football game. We've got 3 of them tonight. 2 of them going to be in the best bets. The one that's not, Northern Illinois heading into Western Michigan. Right now, we've got Northern Illinois, or we got a pick'em game, and the total is at 49.5. This one was just a mess to me, Papa Dude. I know you probably looked at all 3 of these games just like I did. Any lean at all here?
Well, the MAC, betting on the MAC, which I'm going to do, is stupid because there's no real good teams. I mean, it's kind of like the Big 12, stupid to say, but most of us don't think TCU is that much better than anyone else, even though they're proven they are. It's a toss-up. So this game is a total toss-up, and you just have to stay away from it, I think. I don't have any clue who's going to win that game tonight. So I stayed away from that one.
Yeah, I kind of lean the under here, Aaron. You have 2 teams that both suck on offense and both lean toward the runs. The first half under especially is one that I kind of took a long look at, but couldn't pull the trigger. Do you see anything here with the total sitting at 49.5?
I mean, I would go under it as well. It's going to be a pretty brutal game. The other 2 games we're going to talk about in a second aren't so bad. This one is, I would go under. I would lean Northern Illinois, picking them. They're a team that at times has been good over the years, just not this year. Western Michigan, not really ever very good. So I would lean Northern Illinois, and I would definitely lean the under in this spot.
All right, let's head into the best bets here. We got a couple of MAC games that we're going to come at you with. Let's start out here with Aaron's best bet. He's going to head to the ice as well and play a home dog.
Yeah, I almost played the Washington Capitals tonight, but I thought, with the Penguins, they've lost 7 in a row. Surely they're due to win one, and Washington's not playing very well. So I ended up going the Canadians plus 130, and I know the Canadians kind of had the stigma of they're not very good, but they're a little bit better this year than they were last year, certainly. Coming off of a win last night in Detroit, they won 3-2. Jake Allen played in that game, so it was a really nice win. They do have a pretty good backup goalie as well. Montembeault, the backup there at Montreal. He's 2-1 on the season, a 0.928 save percentage. Pretty good for him. I like him in the spot. They catch Vancouver. Vancouver played last night and won as well. They played their backup. Now they get the starter back in, Thatcher Demko. You'd think, well, that's not good. Well, actually, it might be decent for Montreal because Thatcher Demko is 1-6-2 with a 3.91 goals against average and a 0.879 save percentage. He's been really bad. So I like Montreal, even though they've got the backup goalie in there tonight. They're at home. They've been playing pretty well. I like them in the spot. So I thought the plus 130 made the difference for me. I think this is more of a pick 'em type of game. So if I'm getting the plus money, I'm going to take Montreal tonight.
Feels a little like an over to me too. That 6.5 total might be a little low for 2 teams that can put the biscuit in the basket. All right, let's head back over to action. We'll jump onto my best bet here. I'm going to go to Buffalo. And this is a situation where I think simply the wrong team is favored. I'm going to take them on the money line, plus 110 tonight. They're headed into Central Michigan. And this is kind of a tale of 2 seasons for Buffalo. If you go back and you look at their year, they struggled early on, started the season 0-3. But since then, they have gone 5-1. And I think the reason they're a dog is because they got beat by Ohio last week. Well, Ohio is the best team in the MAC. I mean, they're a tough team to face, especially on the offensive side of the football. Faced Toledo the week before, probably your second best offensive team in the MAC. And even when you factor that in, they are still an even-rated defense with Central Michigan, who has faced no one. Their 2 wins are over the worst 2 MAC teams in the conference, and they're currently sitting in the conference at 3-2. Additionally, when you look at just against the spread records, Buffalo is 7-2 against the spread. West Central Michigan's 3-5-1. I think it's a Buffalo team that's just being underrated because of their last game, and Central Michigan, the team that's being overrated because of their more recent games. I mean, they just came off a win against that Northern Illinois team we mentioned wasn't very good. They were able to get the W there, but the previous 3 games before that, they were a touchdown favorite or more in all 3 and lost 2 of the 3 outright and didn't cover the 3rd game. So I think the Central Michigan team is overrated. I think Buffalo is starting to figure it out. Their front 7 hasn't played well, but their front 7 is actually good and was considered one of the better front 7s in this conference heading into the season. So I think the wrong team's favored in this spot, Aaron. Did you look at the Buffalo Central Michigan game at all?
I totally agree with you. I like Buffalo tonight a lot. You look at the Central Michigan team. I don't know why they're not very good this year, but they're not. Last year they went 9-4, pretty solid team. had the quarterback back, had some guys back offensively. They just haven't been very good. This Buffalo team, Papa Dude and I talked about them on a Dudes Who Bet Sports show earlier. They had won 5 in a row before that loss to Ohio last week. So they were in really good shape. They started off the season horrible, and then they really got going. I don't know why they're not favored here. I guess maybe they say, hey, it's a toss-up game, so we'll lean towards Central Michigan in this spot because they're at home. But I'm with you. Plus money on Buffalo, I think, is a really good bet tonight.
You can get them +2 right now, and if you want to tease them up to +8 and you like something else in a teaser, I think that's a great spot too. If you don't want to just take the money line or +2, yep. Papa Dude, any thoughts here? Buffalo, Central Michigan.
I think Central Michigan's favored because they're at home. It's the only reason I can think. I'm like you. I would have thought Buffalo would have been favored in this. Losing to Ohio is not a bad loss. Ohio's playing great right now, and they're traditionally pretty decent in the MAC. So. Yeah, I like that bet a lot. I think Buffalo should win this game tonight, unless they do stupid stuff, which you never know.
Yeah, they kept Bowling Green down to 7 points. They kept UMass down to 7 points. Their defense is decent when it shows up. They just got to do that tonight against a Central Michigan team that hasn't really been that good on the offensive side of the ball. So hopefully we can keep it rolling. All right, let's jump over to Papa Dude's best bet here. You're going to parlay an NBA game with an underdog in the MAC. Tell us more about it.
Well, I threw in the Raptors over the Rockets to get us a little bit more value because, listen, if they don't beat the Rockets, I don't care if I miss the bet. I mean, it's in Toronto. I'm not saying the Raptors are great, but they're not bad, and they can score. And let's see, what is their record right now? 6-5.
Yeah, the Rockets are 2-9.
And the Rockets are 2-9. So I just think they're going to win that game. So I threw that one in to get a little bit more value. Bowling Green and Kent State tonight. Again, I think Bowling Green should be favored in this game. The game's at home. Bowling Green has won 4 out of the last 5. They beat Miami, Ohio, which is a decent team. They went to Central Michigan and won. And then they beat Western Michigan last week. So they're on a roll. The thing that really turns me, Kent State, we saw them. Here's the dumbest scheduling ever. And some of these teams do this for money. And when you do this, you're not being fair to your team. They played at Washington, at Oklahoma, at Georgia. Hey, you get to this time of the season, what is your team? You're going to be 0-3 no matter what you do, right? All for money, just to get the big gate. Your players know that. Plus, you're going to be worn down. Now, they may come right out tonight and just make me look like an idiot, but I think they're worn down a little bit. They're on the road. They're 3-6. They really don't have a lot to play for. Bowling Green's having one of their best seasons in a while. I like Bowling Green to win that tonight. So I'm going to go Bowling Green and couple it with Toronto and get a pretty good price.
Yeah, I mean, Kent State 0-5 on the road so far this season. They've lost the last 5 games ATS, lost 3 of those outright, 2 of those being on the road. Lost to, I believe it's Miami, Ohio, the Cardinal last week. That was a pretty brutal loss there as well. So just not a wonderful stretch there for Kent State. Bowling Green seems to have turned a little bit of a corner here as we've gotten later in the season. They've ripped off 3 back-to-back wins, including beating Miami, Ohio as well. So, Aaron, any thoughts here on this Kent State Bowling Green game?
Yeah, I think you guys are on the right side of this one too. Kent State, I thought they would be a little bit better than this coming into the season as well. They're not. They're on the road. I mean, this Bowling Green team, I don't think they're great, but they're better than Kent State. I think that's what it really comes down to. I think they play well. They'll win this game. I think Bowling Green gets it done tonight. I get another one. I don't know why they're not favored in this game.
You're starting to see 2.5s pop up in the Buffalo game. So if you want to wait and see if we get 3 by kickoff, I kind of love Buffalo +3 as well. Bowling Green +2 right now in most places. You can wait and see if that rolls up a little bit. I'd be surprised if either crosses over to 3, but if it does, I would definitely take either the dogs plus the 3 in that spot.
Yeah, I would too.
All right. Thank you very much for joining us here on Dudes Who Bet Daily. First time we've seen you in a while, but we will be back all week, noon Eastern, with our best bets from around the sports and horse racing world. By the way, if you want to bet some horses today, Churchill Downs goes off at 1 o'clock. Free picks over at racingdudes.com. And we have a pick 5 carryover at Finger Lakes. If you really want to degen out, that starts at 152, 143, something like that. 50-cent base unit, 30,000 sitting in the pool. So I'm probably going to post something up on Twitter. So you're following me on Twitter, then you'll be able to see those picks for that crazy Wednesday carryover over at Finger Lakes. All right, let's take a look at the best bets here, and then we'll sign off. We got Papa Dude taking Bowling Green and the Raptors, a moneyline parlay, plus 161. Aaron going the Canadians, plus 130. I always think I spell Canadians wrong when I put that E in there, but it is correct. And then I'm going to take Buffalo here, plus 110 on the money line. You can get that at plus 130. Still plus 110. I was hoping we get plus 130 by now. Weekly record, we're 0-0 because we're kicking it off here for the year. We are up $1,398 off a $100 base unit. Thank you very much for joining us. We will see everybody tomorrow. I got to get to the brand thing because I'm rusty.